In Greek mythology, one of the most common misconceptions is the belief that Hades is the god of death. While Hades does rule over the underworld and governs the realm of the dead, he is not the personification of death itself. That role belongs to the primordial deity known as Thanatos, who embodies death in its purest form. Thanatos is not a widely prominent figure in Greek mythology, yet he belongs to the first generation of gods, being the son of Nyx, the primordial goddess of the night, and Erebus, the primordial god of darkness. As with many of the primordial beings, Thanatos is often perceived as more of a concept rather than a physical entity, representing the inevitability of death itself. However, Thanatos is somewhat of an exception among his kind. Unlike many primordial deities who remain abstract forces, he occasionally appears in early Greek artwork. In these depictions, he is often shown as a solemn man, cloaked in darkness, sometimes possessing large wings. In some representations, he is even depicted wielding a scythe, a striking resemblance to the modern image of the Grim Reaper. This visual representation makes him appear as a fallen angel, carrying out his duties in a silent, impartial manner. It is common for deities associated with death to be viewed as malevolent or ominous figures. The fear of the inevitable end often leads people to vilify these gods, despite their crucial role in maintaining the natural order. However, Thanatos, like many other death deities, is far from evil. He does not take lives out of cruelty or malice. Rather, he is an impartial force, carrying out the natural cycle of life. Thanatos is known for his gentle and peaceful nature, delivering death in a manner as soft as a whisper. His touch is light and painless, similar to the embrace of his twin brother, Hypnos, the primordial deity of sleep. In contrast to Thanatos's quiet and merciful approach to death, his sisters, the Charis, embody violent and gruesome deaths, often associated with battlefield slaughter and disease. While Thanatos represents a peaceful passage, the Charis are fearsome, bloodthirsty spirits who revel in destruction. Thanatos' other siblings are equally significant in mythology. Among them are Eris, the goddess of strife and discord; Nemesis, the goddess of retribution; Apathy, the goddess of deception; and Charon, the ferryman of the underworld, who transports souls across the river Styx. Despite his vital role in the natural order, Thanatos was often despised by both mortals and gods alike. His existence was a reminder that death could not be bargained with, that it was an inescapable fate for all living beings. In Thanatos' eyes, death was fair and unbiased. Everyone met their end when their time arrived, regardless of status or power. Although death was seen as an unavoidable reality, there were instances where individuals managed to trick Thanatos and temporarily evade their fate. One of the most famous stories involving Thanatos is that of King Sisyphus, a cunning ruler known for his deceit and trickery. Having angered the gods with his betrayal, Sisyphus was sentenced to death, and Zeus sent Thanatos to escort him to the underworld. Upon arrival, the king devised a clever plan. He requested that Thanatos demonstrate how the chains of death worked, pretending to be curious about his own fate. When Thanatos complied, Sisyphus seized the opportunity to trap the god of death in his own chains and made his escape back to the mortal world. With Thanatos imprisoned, the balance of life and death was thrown into chaos. No mortal could die, leading to a world where warriors fought endlessly without ever perishing. This disruption particularly enraged Ares, the god of war, who found that his battles lost their purpose if no one could fall in combat. Ares took matters into his own hands, journeying to the underworld to free Thanatos and restore order. Once freed, Thanatos immediately reclaimed Sisyphus and dragged him back to the underworld, ensuring that death would remain inevitable for all mortals. Thanatos also had a notable encounter with the legendary hero Heracles. In one tale, Heracles was tasked with rescuing Princess Alcestis, who had chosen to sacrifice herself in place of her husband. When Thanatos arrived to claim her soul, Heracles confronted him in a fierce battle, eventually overpowering the god of death and forcing him to release Alcestis. This story highlights that despite his power and inevitability, Thanatos was not invincible. He could be challenged and even temporarily defeated under extraordinary circumstances. Another significant moment in Thanatos' mythology occurs during the Trojan War. Zeus, despite orchestrating the war, was devastated by the death of his son, Sarpedon, a demigod and ally of the Trojans. Unable to bear the thought of his son's body being desecrated on the battlefield, Zeus ordered Apollo to retrieve it. Apollo then handed the body to Thanatos and Hypnos, who were tasked with safely transporting Sarpedon's remains to his homeland of Lycia, where he would receive an honorable burial. This act reinforced the idea that Thanatos was not merely a harbinger of doom, but also a guardian of dignity in death, ensuring that the fallen were treated with respect. As Greek beliefs evolved over time, so too did Thanatos' depiction. In later periods, the transition from life to death was seen as a more peaceful process, and the underworld became a less terrifying prospect. Thanatos, once a somber and shadowy figure, was now portrayed as an incredibly beautiful deity, resembling Eros and other winged gods of Greek mythology. Some artistic depictions showed him as an infant, sleeping in the arms of his mother, Nyx, symbolizing the quiet nature of death. Others showed him carrying an upside-down torch, representing a life that had been gently extinguished. Deities like Thanatos often go unnoticed, their roles unappreciated until their presence is directly felt. When people finally acknowledge them, it is often with fear or disdain. Yet Thanatos performed a thankless but essential duty, ensuring the balance between life and death was maintained. His gentle touch and painless embrace stood in stark contrast to the brutal deaths inflicted by his sisters. In many ways, he was more similar to Hades, another misunderstood deity often mistaken for an evil figure simply because of his domain. Many compare Thanatos to the Grim Reaper, but while the two share similarities, they are not the same entity. Thanatos existed long before the concept of the Grim Reaper emerged and was never seen as an executioner, but rather a quiet and impartial guide to the afterlife. There is no glory in the role that Thanatos and other deities of death play, but their presence is crucial in maintaining the cosmic order. Without death, there can be no life. Thanatos was not a figure of horror, but rather one of balance. His role was to ensure that every soul reached its destined place, carrying out the cycle that sustained the universe itself. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the lesser discussed deities of Greek mythology. If you have any thoughts on Thanatos, feel free to share them in the comments below. As always, I've been your host, Mythology and Fiction Explained. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more ancient legends and folklore, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to StorySeeker. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss a new story. See you in the next adventure.